hope to see many of you in my classroom C18. Liv is going to put together a list of places where you can volunteer. Our last presenter of the day is Charlotte Correiro. Charlotte is a junior here at Dartmouth High School. She plays soccer in the fall and is a member of the orchestra. She loves to travel and meet new people. Her talk today focuses on her involvement with learning outside of the traditional classroom setting, with an emphasis on how this type of education can be beneficial to all students. She wants you to broaden your horizons and experience new cultures for yourself. She hopes that you'll leave feeling curious and ready to learn about other people that are unlike you. Please welcome Charlotte Correiro as she presents Learn by Example.
Thank you. To begin, I want you to consider stereotypes and the role that they play in your life. Have you had an idea of someone before you met them? Have they had an idea of you? For example, I'm a teenage girl, and with that comes labels like catty, vain, and emotional. And regardless of whether or not these things are true, people seem to have these ideas about me before I even meet them. This is the power of stereotypes. We all face them, and we are all guilty of stereotyping others. Consider the picture behind me. It's clear that there's a wide array of ages, races, genders, and representations. And I'm sure some of you have names or ideas of people in this picture based on what you see. Each person here is an individual, yet it's so easy for us to make a decision about who we think they are based on what we see and based on ideas and stereotypes that we already have in mind. Sometimes, stereotypes are so commonplace that we think of them to be true. This region here, Appalachia, is made up of states like Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee. The words along the side of the map are ideas and stereotypes that have become so ingrained in our society that we think of them to be true, as opposed to just widespread judgments. This can be majorly attributed to TV programming like Moonshiners and Hillbilly Blood, and news like Diane Sawyer's Children of the Mountains, which serve to highlight and profit off of the very ideas that you see here. We come to think that, well, Appalachia is like this, when in fact, these types of exaggerated media only act to create an us and them divide between the rest of the country and Appalachia. I spent 5 weeks in Appalachia with 9 other high school students from across the country during the summer of 2015 with an educational nonprofit called the Field Academy, based out of Burlington, Vermont. Their mission statement is here behind me. The Field Academy is a school committed to making learning and life indistinguishable. This means that they work with students and educators from all across the country to provide community-driven and experience-based learning opportunities for young people. Our goal in Appalachia was to learn about the history of environmental justice and connect the dots between workers' rights, climate change activism, racial justice movements, and community leadership. We did this by traveling through West Virginia, Virginia, and Kentucky, and staying in places from tents on the Appalachian Trail to a family home called Buckeye Banjo Ranch. We took classes in economics, natural science, history, and leadership, led by our teachers who acted both as educators and as mentors as we learned, lived, and traveled as a group. Most importantly, we met people in the area, from miners to radio broadcasters, and learned from them and their experiences. Here, one of my classmates is making a metal hook with a woman named Cindy, who hosted us at her home in Eggleston, Virginia, for 5 days. We worked with Cindy to learn blacksmithing, and her husband, Greg, talked us through the process of making a banjo in his studio. In this photo, we're working with a farmer from West Virginia, Richard, to help him fertilize a plot of his land. This is me carrying goat manure, looking very excited. Later that day, we had lunch with him and his family and talked to them about the ways that they're practicing permaculture, which is a system of agricultural principles based on emulating the patterns of natural ecosystems, and it's often related to sustainable farming practices. Farm to table has certainly become a pretty popular trend in restaurants around here, but this is really the most authentic type of farm to table meal that you could find. We picked vegetables to eat at lunch and ate venison from their property. Restaurants can overcharge for a small farm fresh salad, but there's nothing quite like picking the food that you're going to eat right off of the vine. The classes that we took were very closely related to the experiences that we were having. We took history classes and talked about the banjo and how it's acted as a tool to make change for generations. We took economics classes where we talked about Appalachia's vibrant agriculture and their resource curse, how they seem to be stripped of so many of their natural materials. And we took leadership classes where we learned about the significance of a woman like Cindy making her way in a historically male-dominated trade. We recorded everything we learned in chronicles, which are personal journals that act as everything from class notebooks to diaries. Here is an entry from my first day with things like flowers and notes and my boarding pass from the flight to North Carolina. Next are some notes from a few of my classes. As you can see, they're arranged a bit differently than your traditional lined paper notes, and this helped me listen and write at the same time while creatively recording and absorbing new information. Each of my classmates and I were free to record notes and things in any way that we wanted, although we were told to bring an unlined journal to the Field Academy to act as our chronicle, encouraging creativity and trying to end our very real dependence on lined paper. The entry on the right is organized in a grid to help me compare the 4 ideas and see them all together, and it's color-coded so I can see the differences between different ideas. I also have notes to myself, as you can see here, because I thought it was important to record how I felt when I was learning all of this new information for the first time, and my chronicle gave me the opportunity to do so. Like I said earlier, the Field Academy is a school, but it's clear that this wasn't a traditional learning environment in any sense. This type of learning, in a fancy term, is called experiential education. This is challenge and experience followed by reflection, leading to learning and growth, but in a much simpler way, this is learning by doing. What you see here is the first of a few principles. This is what makes a collection of mundane experiences into an opportunity for learning and growth. My classmates and I are here speaking with farmers at a local farmers market about what they grew, where they grew it, and why. On this day, we were successful in our inquiries, but in the past, we had some difficulty getting people to answer our questions. They didn't want to open up to a group of misfit, overeager teenagers, and I understand that. We had to experiment and learn how to ask good questions and listen with care. The next principle here is what combines all of these experiences into meaningful, relevant lessons. It can be a formal class discussion related to the places you've been or the people you've met, or an informal one, like the one you see here. This picture was taken about 3 weeks into the trip, a little past halfway. We were talking with Nat, our leadership teacher, about comfort zones and stretch zones, and the way that our new experiences had pushed us out of our comfort zones and into our stretch zones, allowing for learning, growth, and us to be challenged. The analysis could also be solitary, whether it be writing in a journal, composing a poem, or drawing a picture. Any form of reflective expression works to understand what you've learned. The picture here is a mind map that I drew after we went to the farmer's market I just mentioned. I'm sure many of you are familiar with mind maps, but often we forget the creative freedom that they give us. In this mind map, I could doodle a little bit, and mostly I talked about the experiences of the people that I met and how they were similar and different to the experiences that I had here at home. The last principle is one of the most unique parts of experiential education, and it holds 2 pretty big ideas. The first is the personal aspect of learning, and this is really apparent in the fact that who we are shapes the experiences that we have. This means that the experiences that each student has are unique to them and cannot be replicated. Through this, students can engage in learning that is directly relevant to who they are and seek out what means the most to them. The second idea is essentially why I'm here talking to you today. When I went to Appalachia, my head was filled with ideas of what I would find. I came home with an understanding of the area that was entirely different from anything I could have expected. I flew to North Carolina with words like hillbilly and redneck in mind, yet I stand here today with a new knowledge of an area built on a proud history of resistance that's fighting back against all of the ideas that we have of it. From sustainable farming to preserving local history, from small-town farmers markets supporting local economies to drag shows and punk shops in eastern Kentucky, Appalachia is more than I could have ever imagined, and that in itself is amazing. Future learning for me has become asking questions. I learned more than I ever thought possible by asking people to tell me about who they were. After I had what the Field Academy calls a heart-blown moment in Appalachia, I realized that there's so much more to learn about the world and the people around me, and I want you all to share that same sense of wonder and curiosity. Experiential education is for everyone, and it's everywhere, not just in programs like the Field Academy. Do you remember the students from the first slide and the ideas you might have had about them? Well, we have the opportunity to meet new people every day. The next time you see someone and you think you might know who they are, talk to them. Suddenly they're a who and not a what, a real person with a story of their own to share with you. Meaningful questions and thoughtful conversation with people who at first glance may seem to be unlike us is an excellent opportunity to learn, and you often realize that you have much more in common with them than you think you would have. As we visit new places, whether they be close to home or far away, we're broadening our perceptions of the world around us. You don't have to travel or confront an issue to learn from experience. Every time you meet someone or engage with a new place, you're humanizing another part of the large, sometimes daunting world that we live in. In today's divisive political climate, it's more important than ever that we see people as humans, not just what they believe, who they support, or where they're from. We can do this by meeting new people and experiencing life with them, by asking them questions and reflecting upon our experiences, and using this to inspire future learning. As you begin to think like this, by viewing every experience as a learning opportunity, don't shy away from the questions that come up. In fact, ask them and ask more. The answers you find might surprise you. Thank you.